Hey everyone, Ronan here, and welcome back to the channel. We got a lot of things to cover in this part today, but before we get into that, we're going to have to shout out the patron as usual. So Blood Down, thank you very much for your continued support. And also, everyone, analytics are very important, so please make sure to drop a like and to drop a comment to help fuel the algorithm to get to a larger audience. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. That way you'll never miss another upload from anything that comes up to the channel. But with all that being said, let's get into what if Brock took the gym challenge, part 10. I hope you enjoy. We begin today's episode with Joe, Brock, and Giselle as they are all sitting on a train heading through the wild area. The next stop on their destination is going to be Motostoke. However, it's the same routine as usual, with Giselle sitting off on the far side of the train car while Brock and Joe continue to conversate about what's going to happen next. All the while, Grookey's kind of running up and down the train car a little bit wild, just basically playing with anything that catches its attention. This is what leads us to the conversation with Brock and Joe as they're trying to figure out exactly who's Grookey's trainer. After all, whoever owns it has to be missing it something fierce. However, Brock speaks up to the contrary, telling Joe that Grookey doesn't seem to be any type of distress. It continues to stick with them no matter where they go. It's like the grass starter has just chosen them to be its group of friends. If it does have a trainer, then that means that Grookey is not in a hurry to go back to it, which could mean a plethora of things, good or bad. While Joe acknowledges the truth in Brock's statement, he does reiterate that Brock can't continue to rely on it. His last gym battle was only won because he used a Pokemon that wasn't his. If Grookey wouldn't have stepped in, then you would have had to resort to either Gyarados or Carkol, which both would have been bad choices. Brock understands what Joe's trying to say here, but this also brings up a sore topic of Gyarados and what Brock's going to do about this, to which Joe reiterates. However, the boy still hasn't come to a conclusion about this. The serpent is going to be difficult no matter what he does, but he's going to have to think of a solution soon. Brock just doesn't understand it. Whenever he was around it when his mother was alive, Gyarados was always totally obedient. It even let Brock ride on its back several times. So it's not like the serpent doesn't know Brock. It's just there's something else that Brock hasn't quite gotten on yet. However, his inner thoughts and conversation with Joe is going to come to a grinding halt when the train is forced to slam on its brakes as they can hear the grinding of the wheels on the track. Peering out the window, Giselle lets out an incessant rabble about what's going on and how this is interrupting everything that she had planned for the day, only to reveal that there is a herd of Pokemon that have parked themselves on the train tracks, not allowing the train to proceed any further. And as they're in the wild area, they're kind of at the mercy of any Pokemon in this gigantic chasm that the train is traveling through until the Pokemon decide to move. So the conductor informs everybody of the delay, telling them that as soon as the herd is off of the tracks, then they will proceed on to Motostoke. However, they don't have an exact ETA on this yet. So this leaves our group of frenemies in a position of what they're going to do until this happens. However, Giselle isn't going to be one to stand around, as she feels like that if she were to apply her knowledge to the situation, then she may be able to move things along a bit. So she decides to exit the train, going to face off against this herd of Pokemon that have made themselves at home on the tracks. They're the Pokemon known as Cutiefant and Copperajah. However, the giant steel types refuse to move, no matter how much Giselle stamps her feet and yells at them. Even with the assistance of her starter Marowak, she's unable to really make any progress as the steel types merely brush off the annoyance of these two much smaller beings. This is where we find Joe and Brock just sitting on a rock at the edge of the tracks, laughing at Giselle and all of her attempts, which angers Giselle even more, causing her to order Marowak to use a boomerang on the two. As the two continue to chuckle to themselves, the whooshing of the bone can be heard getting closer and closer, forcing both Joe and Brock to drop at the last second so they can avoid being pummeled by the bone. They both look up to see Marowak and Giselle laughing at their misfortune, to which Joe scolds Giselle for doing something like that. It was extremely dangerous and they could have been hit. However, the girl simply tells them that it's their fault. They shouldn't have been laughing at her. She's the only one that's actually being productive around here while they sit on their lazy butts doing nothing. This kind of catches both Joe and Brock off guard, as for once Giselle's actually right. They're not really doing anything, and this kind of rubs Joe the wrong way as he begins to devise a plan that he can try to use Choodle and Sableye to move the herd of pachyderms right off of the rails. However, this thought isn't going to get a chance to be completed before the sounds of whooshing come hurling back towards them again as Marowak's club returns to its hand, forcing both Joe and Brock to duck once more. causing Marowak and Giselle to begin laughing once more. This causes an argument to break out between Joe and Giselle that begins to get really heated as the two get into each other's face. Not liking the way that Joe is talking down to her, Giselle orders Marowak to use another boomerang on the boy that is only a mere 2 feet away from her. Knowing that this could end ugly, Joe decides to send in Sableye to try and stave off some of the damage that is about to come his way. All the while, the two continue to argue back and forth, getting louder and louder and louder until they can hear the echoes ringing throughout the canyon on the far side of the wild area. Joe and Giselle are in a heated argument as Sableye and Marowak begin to trade blow for blow. While this seems like it could be the most unproductive thing that the two could be doing the entire time, it did have a side effect that they weren't expecting, as it seems the herd of steel types that have centered themselves on the rails have decided that they don't want to listen to the humans bicker and argue anymore. So they begin to move on, to which only Brock notices. After a couple of minutes, the entire herd has completely cleared the rails, allowing the train to let off a very loud blow of its horn that is able to mute the two, as it signals that if they don't hurry up and get back on, then the train will be departing without them. It's at this moment when Joe and Giselle turn to look at the train, they can see Brock already running towards it, yelling back that if they don't hurry up, then they're gonna get left behind. The two and their starter Pokemon drop everything that they're doing as they run for the train, watching as its wheels spark and spin as it begins to pick up momentum heading down the tracks. The last thing they do is jump for one of the handrails as they pull themselves onto the train, both of them thankful that they were able to catch it. However, Joe is secretly wishing that Giselle had missed it, just by a sliver. Now, with everything back on track, literally, Giselle, Brock, and Joe return the status quo to what it was, with Giselle sitting on the opposite side of the car keeping to herself, while Joe and Brock discuss things going further. This leads us to a few hours later when we find them in Motostoke, the site of the 3rd badge of the Galar region. Brock is pumped. He can't wait to get a chance to battle this leader. He feels like he's on cloud 9 now that he has 2 of the badges that he's supposed to get to enter the Galar League, and the fact that his father couldn't even gain 1 makes the boy ecstatic beyond all compare. This causes Brock to forego the normal heading to the Pokemon Center to get his Pokemon checked out in favor of heading straight to the gym so that way he can get a battle started. However, Joe is quickly to remind Brock that it might be a good idea to take the day to rest. After all, they have been traveling, and while their Pokemon haven't really been out of their balls, they could still feel a little bit of fatigue. So it's best to be safe than sorry. However, Brock just simply tells Joe that don't worry, his Pokemon haven't battled, so this gym badge is as good as his. Not to worry. Joe simply shrugs as there's not really much he can do, while Giselle tails them from a distance as she's thinking about her next plan of attack so that way she can get Brock to see things her way. This puts us firmly outside of the Motostoke gym. Brock is super excited and he wastes no time heading inside to ask the gym attendant if the leader happens to be in, to which the gym attendant confirms, telling Brock that they will signal the gym leader right away so he can have a seat right here in the lobby until Kabu gets here. Brock is even more excited now than when he entered the gym. His blood is starting to pump as his heart beats in his chest. This is the same feeling he's had whenever he battles any type of gym leader here in the Galar region. He doesn't know what it is, but whenever he feels the thrill of these battles, it's like nothing else matters in the world, and that's something he wants to continue to experience. All the while, both Joe and Giselle watch Brock as he daydreams about what he's going to get a chance to do today in this gym and how he's going to stand victorious over the leader and his ace Pokemon. However, this daydream is going to quickly turn to a nightmare when Brock gets the chance to meet the leader of the Motostoke gym. He is a seasoned veteran of the Galar region known as Kabu. The old man walks up to Brock, greets him, and asks if he is the challenger that he has for the day, to which Brock quickly acknowledges, signaling that he is ready to start their battle. Kabu tells the boy to follow him into the gym. They are going to have a 3-on-3, so he hopes that Brock is ready. However, this slightly throws the boy off guard, as to this point he hasn't had a 3-on-3 battle before, and he only technically has 3 Pokemon. While Grookey would be a good choice, it's still not his Pokemon, so if any one of the gym leaders find that out, they could disqualify him for it. And then there's Gyarados, the one Pokemon that he really doesn't want to use in his battle ever since of what happened with Milo. However, after all of the bravado he put up, there's no turning back now. Brock has no choice but to stick to his guns, as he and Kabu enter the battle area of the Motostoke Stadium. Just like all of the other gyms that he's been in, it is a massive stadium able to accommodate any Pokemon that Dynamaxes, and this gets Brock a little bit more excited, shaking off the fear that he was feeling before. Turning to the challenger, Kabu tells Brock to take his side of the field. They will begin momentarily. Kabu says that he hopes Brock has brought his A game, because this gym leader happens to be the one gym leader everybody has a problem with. If they can't beat him, then they have no chance of making it against anybody else in the league. With a brief gulp, Brock turns and heads to his side of the battlefield, thinking about what the leader just said to him. The fact that this is a 3-on-3 battle, and then the fact that he's as strong as all of the other gym leaders after him, this could be a real problem for the novice trainer. However, our hero isn't going to let this stop him, as Kabu sends in his first Pokemon, Ninetales. This is where it's revealed to Brock that Kabu is a fire-type gym leader, so he thinks he has the perfect counter in this with his own starter, as Carkol makes his appearance. As the battle is waved to begin, Brock is feeling pretty confident in both his starter's ability in Steam Engine and its typing with being half rock. This means that this should be a solid sweep. However, things are going to go south very quickly, as Kabu reveals that his Pokemon is equipped to handle a situation like this, as he orders Ninetales to start off with the Confuse Ray, while Brock in tandem tries to use a Flame Charge in order to increase its speed to outpace the attack. However, Brock overthought one key thing here, and that was the ability of Ninetales, as it's revealed to be Flash Fire, as when it's hit with the fire type attack, it immediately gets a stat increase to its speed and nullifies any damage that Carkol would have been able to deal, all the while being hit with the Confuse Ray, causing confusion to set in on the rock type. Things are off to a rocky start, to which Brock fully realizes. He begins to call to his starter, trying to get it to come to. However, Carkol just merely hits itself in confusion, forcing Brock to recall it for the time being in order to break this. Well, that interaction didn't go as well, Kabu says. How about you try something else? But the problem is that Brock's other Pokemon all have something that's gonna not do him so well in this scenario. But unfortunately, the boy has to make a choice, or he will be disqualified from the gym battle. So, reluctantly, he sends in Joltik. But unfortunately, just like Carkol before him, Joltik is unable to deal with the pressure that Ninetales is able to provide, as with its increased firepower, it's able to quickly render the bug unable to battle with a flamethrower, giving Brock his first actual loss of the battle. This shakes the boy a little bit. However, he has no choice but to keep pushing forward, as he sends back in Carkol now that the confusion has been broken due to it being recalled. But unfortunately, just like before, Ninetales is going to demonstrate that Carkol isn't going to be able to really do much here. While Confuse Ray can immobilize it temporarily, Ninetales has a far more effective way of dealing with the fire rock type, as Kabu calls for one simple technique that's going to end its existence in a dig. The Firefox tunnels beneath the battlefield, only for it to emerge seconds later, striking Carkol with all the might that it has, causing the rock type to faint due to its 4 times the weakness to the move. This leaves Brock in a very awkward position. He hasn't been able to get past the first Pokemon in this gym leader, and much like the battle with Milo, he's beginning to realize that he is extremely outclassed, which means that if Milo truly was the weakest of the gym leader, as well as Nessa being the second weakness, then will he ever be able to get past this Kabu character? However, he's going to be left in a position to where he may find out in real time, as Brock is demanded to produce his final Pokemon. This is where Grookey decides to make itself known once again, choosing to be Brock's final choice as it jumps into battle. However, this is where Brock is going to come to some sort of sense about the situation, telling Kabu that he forfeits the battle. There's no way Grookey can stand up to Ninetales, and the other Pokemon he has with him isn't something that he'd rather use in this battle due to its inability to obey commands. So he feels that it would be best if he just forfeits for the time being. Kabu gazes at the boy with a stern look plastered across his face. However, what comes out of his mouth is the exact opposite to his look. He compliments Brock on knowing when to show restraint. He could have used his Pokemon in an attempt to try and gain some sort of leverage here, but rather than risk the safety of others, he's chosen to forego that and realized when he is beaten. For that, Brock does have Kabu's respect, although that's all he's going to be leaving the gym with today. Grookey is unsure of what's happening, as it was excited to face off against Ninetales, who is now patiently waiting against Kabu's side. However, Brock just tells Grookey that they should go. Their battle is over here today, but don't worry, they'll be back. Then the boy turns, walking off out of the battle area, with Grookey in tow trying to catch up to its new favorite person. Later that night, when Brock is rejoined at the Pokemon Center by Joe and Giselle, the boy is contemplating his next move, fully aware that he is far outclassed by Kabu as a trainer. This is where Joe asks what is on Brock's mind, to which the boy comments that Joe doesn't have to worry. Brock has an idea on how he's going to be able to beat Kabu, but it's going to require some intense training. More training than he's going to be able to get here in Motorstoke. However, before Brock can finish his thought, this is where Giselle cuts in. Finally! you've come to your senses. I've been waiting for this moment, for you to be dealt such a humiliating loss that you'll realize that your endeavors here in Galar are a complete waste of time. Now we can go home back to the Pokemon Institute, and everything will be right in the world. However, Brock just tells the girl that she couldn't be more wrong, causing Giselle's face to go long, as she thought she had finally been able to wear Brock down. Brock informs both the two that he's going to be heading into the wild area first thing in the morning, and he won't be back until he has a full grasp on his Pokemon and a way to finally stand up to Kabu. The loss he took today was humiliating, but what would be more humiliating is if he didn't actually give it a proper chance to try and beat Kabu. His Pokemon can do it. He knows that they can. They just need to get stronger. Giselle's jaw hits the floor, unable to really contemplate what Brock just said. It's complete madness of what he's doing. Why would he put himself through this? He should just head back to the Pokemon Institute. Everything would be easier there. However, the ever-supporting friend of Joe is fully on board with Brock's plan, telling the boy that he will be accompanying him into the wild area so that way he can help him train. And if they're both lucky, maybe they can catch some new Pokemon. Brock is fully on board as Grookey is sitting on the head of this new human, contemplating its next move, as it's a little peeved that he didn't get a chance to battle Ninetales. However, the grass type won't fight the decision of the boy at this current time, as the next morning they are heading out to the wild area. Even Giselle has decided to tail the two, as she is afraid of being left behind because she still has it in her head that she can convince Brock that what he is doing is a fool's errand. However, no matter how much she pleads, Brock still refuses to accept her reality. As they leave the safety of Motostoke's borders, heading into what could be the most dangerous place in Central Galar. The trio trek as deep into the wild area as they possibly can, until they can no longer see civilization. Merely a couple of old remnants of times long forgotten. This is perfect, Brock says. Exactly where we needed to be. It's here that we'll make camp and we'll begin training. Finally, Giselle says with a sigh of relief, they could stop. They've been walking for over half of a day now. It's here that Joe and Brock begin to set up camp, as they get their tents pitched and a fire going, as they realize that it's a little bit too late to start actually exploring the area, but they could do some light sparring and battling. However, it's revealed here that Giselle still hadn't taken the heed of Brock's warning, as while they were in Motostoke, she didn't take the time to do any type of shopping to get the gear that she needed to be out in the wild. Joe just merely shakes his head. How long is this girl going to continue to survive on dumb luck alone? But they have little time for this, as there is a strange noise that can be heard off in the distance. It sounds like some sort of fighting, to which has grabbed the attention of Brock, Joe, and Giselle, but all for different reasons. You see, if it's this close, it could be a threat or a new opportunity. So Brock takes off in search of this ruckus that they can hear, with Giselle and Joe in tow. While it takes a few minutes of running with Giselle screaming at Brock and Joe to slow down so that way she can catch up, they eventually find the source of this noise, as a very familiar trainer that all of them have met but don't realize that they each know comes into view. The young boy Leon, who seems to be in the middle of training with some of his Pokemon. Actually, he's in the process of battling what appears to be a wild Pokemon, as his Charmeleon is able to clinch a victory against a Pokemon known as Corphish, before Leon throws a Pokeball at the ruffian Pokemon, catching it and securing a new capture for himself. This is where Brock calls out to Leon, to which the boy isn't too happy to see him. So, come to talk more smack about me and my Pokemon, Leon says. Well, I'll have you know that we were able to get our first 2 gym badges of the Galar region, as he reveals both the grass and water badges. However, Brock shows off the same thing, stating that Leon really hasn't been able to do anything that he hasn't been able to do. So he still stands by his previous statements. This causes Leon's blood to boil a little bit, to which he immediately challenges Brock to a Pokemon battle. While this is a little sudden, Brock isn't going to say no, as he did come out here to train, so he smiles, gladly accepting Leon's battle. And just to spice things up a bit, Brock offers for them to make it something called a tag battle, where they both use 2 Pokemon at the same time. Leon has no problem with this, as Charmeleon is already out, and he decides that he wants to give a shot to his newest capture, sending back in the Corphish that he had just added to his roster. Smiling, Brock is excited about this prospect, as with the evolution of his Charmander into the Charmeleon, that means that this battle is going to become very intense. However, he cautions Leon against using Corphish, as he just caught it and it took a lot of damage, so it may not last that long. However, the boy doesn't want to hear anything that Brock has to say. He said he wanted a battle, so they're going to do this now. So Brock better produce his 2 Pokemon, to which Brock gladly does, as he sends both in Karkle and his Joltik. What follows is somewhat of an intense battle, as Joltik and Corphish both square off while Karkle and Charmeleon do the same. However, while Corphish is a bit weak from its battle with Charmeleon, it's still able to put up a decent fight, even though Joltik possesses the type advantage. This results in Joltik being able to just barely knock out the water type with a Thunder Shock. However, Charmeleon is able to gain the upper hand very quickly, as an Incinerate manages to roast the bug, dropping it, bringing this battle to a quick one-on-one, with Karkle being able to put up a serious defense. However, since the last time that Leon saw Brock, there have been a few changes to Charmeleon's moveset, and it showed here when Charmeleon is able to produce a metal claw that is able to crack the exterior on Karkle. The rock type felt that one, but it quickly responds with an ancient power. This results in the two just exchanging blows like this back and forth as their two pig-headed stubborn trainers just stand there giving the same command over and over again, and it eventually comes down to a battle of wills. But unfortunately, they're both too strong for each other, resulting in both Charmeleon and Karkle collapsing from pure exhaustion, each unable to best the other. Both of the boys recall their starters, a bit disappointed that they couldn't get the victory over the other, but that's the least of their worries, as it has now completely become nightfall around them, and both Brock and Leon's stomach begin to grumble as hunger has set in. This is where Joe tells the two that they should head back to camp. Leon can eat with them for the night, as it would be safer for them to all be in the same group as one anyway. While Leon isn't too keen on spending time with Brock, he's not going to turn down a free meal, as he and Charmeleon and the rest of his Pokemon haven't really had the chance to eat, so he takes them up on their offer, as long as Brock is going to keep his comments to himself, to which the boy says no problem. He just wants to offer words of wisdom to Leon, nothing more. But this is where Leon reveals that they're going to have to find his friend. He did actually come out here with someone, and she was supposed to be back by now. Luckily, the group won't have to go looking, as a girl calls out to Leon that is walking just down the hill that is to their right. With no hesitation, Leon excitedly waves to the girl, calling her by her name of Sonia. He tells her to come here. He knows this group, and they've offered to let them stay with them in camp for the night, so that way they can eat and be safer in the wild area. To which the girl is obviously excited, as she spent the entire day trying to document the Pokemon in the surrounding area. However, when night fell, that's when some other Pokemon started to come out. Pokemon that she didn't know that actually lived in the wild area. So she took a little bit of extra time to make sure that she documented as many as possible. But when she realized that the sun had finally completely set, she knew that she had to get back. Well, after all of the introductions are out of the way, this is where our group finds themselves back in the main camp, as Brock and Leon seem to be having a contest on who can choke down their food the fastest. While those two continue to eat like cavemen, Joe and Giselle get a chance to actually know Sonia, and it come to find out that she's the granddaughter of the regional professor, Professor Magnolia. But that's not the most impressive thing about this conversation, as Grookey, who has been disappeared for a couple of hours now, finally walks back into camp like it owns the place, as it sits down next to Brock and his Pokemon and begins eating. This is where Sonia asks Brock if Grookey was a starter, but Brock shakes his head as he chokes down the last bit of food, stating that he doesn't know where it came from. Grookey just showed up one day randomly in one of his battles, and ever since then, it hasn't left. Brock has no idea where it came from or who it belongs to, but he does know that it has a trainer. Really, Sonia says. And how is that? This is where Giselle chimes in, informing her that she tried to capture the grass starter, but the ball failed. This is where Sonia pipes up, as she was talking with her grandmother a few days ago, and one of the starters from the lab had gone missing. She wonders if this is the same Grookey. Brock says he wouldn't know, as he didn't get a chance to meet any of the starters when they were there and he was given his Dynamax band. However, Sonia is quick to realize that this Grookey may possibly be the same one that ran away from the lab. So she dials up her grandmother on the Rotom phone and tells her that she may have found the Grookey. It's been traveling with a human called Brock, to which Professor Magnolia is surprised. It's here that the old lady asks where they are at, to which Sonia currently responds that they are in the middle of the wild area. So she tells Sonia and Brock that they need to call her once they are back inside of the next major city, as she will transfer the ball for Grookey over to them once they are at the Pokemon Center. Brock and Sonia both nod before hanging up. Well, I'm glad that we finally got that figured out, Brock says, as he was starting to become a little bit worried that Grookey may have been separated from its actual trainer. But if it's just one of the lab starter Pokemon, then he'll be glad to get it back to Professor Magnolia. However, this is where Sonia begins to reveal something about Grookey. This Grookey has been with her grandmother for a very long time. She doesn't know what the reason is, but it seems like every time that it leaves with the trainer, it's back at the lab within a couple of weeks. Anytime it's chosen as a starter, Grookey just seems to not get along with the human. So in order to avoid any conflict as it becomes difficult to deal with, the humans just return them to the lab. It's gotten so bad that her grandmother no longer even puts it out as a viable option to be chosen as a starter. So Grookey has just become a permanent fixture in the lab, but it seems that since Grookey wants to travel with you, Brock, it may have chosen the actual human that wants to be its trainer. Really, Brock says, as he looks at the grass monkey while it chows down on food as quickly as Brock and Leon were earlier. However, this moment of clarity is going to be interrupted as a large roar rings out from the lake beside them, causing the group to turn only to reveal a tidal wave that is barreling down on them. And this is where we are going to leave our story for now. So tell me, how did you feel about this part? What did you think about the gym battle that Brock had with Kabu? Did you really think that he was going to be that outmatched in the beginning? What about the battle that Brock had with Leon? It really seems like these two are the opposite sides of the same coin, with one trying to give advice and the other one really refusing to take it. And how about the revelation of who Grookey is, and the fact that it may actually want to be with Brock? And what about this strange attack that's engulfing all of our heroes? What do you think it is, and what do you think's causing it? Let me know in the comments down below. And that's all we had for today's video. I really appreciate you guys stopping by to watch all the way to the end, and I just wanted to say thank you for that. If you guys really enjoy my content, consider following me on some of my other platforms like Discord, where you can get to know other people who are interested in what ifs, or on Twitter, where I post sometimes behind the scenes updates. Or if you want to help the channel grow a little bit extra, why don't you consider donating like the people right here have, as whatever you could offer could help us get to a larger audience by helping us get new videos done, or some of the projects that we were custom art is getting kind of expensive. So we want to make sure that we have the funds to do that. But with all that being said, I really hope you guys enjoyed everything, and I will see you in the next video.